a young Texas war hero returns from World War II, invests everything in a chicken farm, and watches in horror as disease wipes out thousands of birds overnight. At 29, Carroll Shelby is bankrupt, humiliated, staring at empty coops while creditors close in. Most men in his position would have given up forever. Instead, Shelby borrows a helmet, climbs into a friend's race car, and wins his very first event. That desperate victory ignites a fire, launching the broke farmer toward building machines that would destroy Enzo Ferrari's dominance. But the shocking truth is this: Shelby's rise was littered with near-fatal heart attacks, crushing business collapses, and betrayals that nearly ended him multiple times. He became Ferrari's greatest nightmare, but the personal cost was devastating: health battles that forced transplants and years of pain. This isn't the polished movie version. This is the raw, real story: heartbreaking failures, ruthless determination, and triumphs that came at a price few could pay. From total ruin to Le Mans glory, Shelby's journey is packed with twists that will leave you stunned. The heartbreaking failure that pushed him into racing is next, and it's far worse than most people know. Stay with me, you won't believe what broke him first. The heartbreaking failure that pushed him into racing is next, and it's far worse than most people know. Stay with me, you won't believe how close he came to never touching a steering wheel again. Carroll Shelby entered the world on January 11, 1923, in the small town of Leesburg, Texas, son of Warren Hall Shelby, a rural mail carrier, and Eloise Lawrence Shelby. From the start, life dealt him a tough hand. By age 7, doctors diagnosed him with a serious heart valve leakage problem, a condition that confined him to bed for much of his childhood, forcing daily rest and limiting play. Doctors worried it could shorten his life dramatically. His father, a car enthusiast who loved taking young Carroll to local dirt track races, sparked an early passion for speed, but health fears kept everything in check. Viewer, picture a frail boy lying in bed, dreaming of roaring engines while his friends ran free. How crushing must that isolation have felt? As he grew into his teens, the condition miraculously improved enough for Shelby to live normally. The family moved to Dallas, where he graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School, tall and lanky with a newfound energy. But World War II changed everything. In 1941, at 18, Shelby enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps, training as a flight instructor and test pilot at bases like San Antonio Aviation Cadet Center, later Lackland AFB. He never saw overseas combat, staying stateside to train bombardiers and navigators, even dropping love notes from planes to his fiancée Jean Fields on her family farm. On December 18, 1943, he married Jean, and their first child, Sharon, arrived in 1944, followed by sons Michael in 1946 and Patrick in 1947. War ended in 1945, and Shelby, now a decorated flying sergeant, returned to civilian life in Dallas. He tried a dump truck business first, hauling loads to support his growing family, but it struggled. Desperate for stability, around 1949 he poured everything into chicken farming, raising broilers on a ranch outside town. The first batch succeeded brilliantly, netting $5,000 profit, serious money then. Hope surged: this could be the secure future for his wife and 3 young kids. Then disaster struck without warning. The second flock contracted limberneck disease, a deadly botulism variant, wiping out every bird. Overnight, the investment vanished. Debts mounted, no income, bankruptcy loomed. At 29, with a family to feed, Shelby faced total ruin, empty coops, lost savings, the humiliating sting of failure staring him down. Viewer, feel that gut punch: war hero reduced to scraping by, dreams crushed again. What breaks a man like that, or fuels him? But in that rock-bottom moment, a spark ignited. Shelby borrowed racing overalls and a helmet from a friend, entered a local event in January 1952, and everything changed forever. The desperate gamble that saved him is next, and it's the twist that launched Ferrari's nightmare. Hold on, you're about to see how total defeat birthed an unbreakable legend. Chicken farming failure and the spark of racing. The heartbreaking failure that pushed him into racing is next, and it's far worse than most people know. Stay with me, you won't believe how close he came to never touching a steering wheel again. After the war ended in 1945, Carroll Shelby returned to Dallas as a decorated flying sergeant, eager to build a stable life for his young family, wife Jean and their 3 children, Sharon, born 1944, Michael, 1946, and Patrick, 1947. He tried a dump truck hauling business first, but it barely kept them afloat. By around 1949, desperate for security, Shelby sank everything into chicken farming on a ranch outside town. The first batch of broilers thrived, netting him a solid $5,000 profit. Real money in those days that gave hope for a comfortable future away from uncertainty. Viewer, feel that brief ray of light. A war hero finally providing steadily, watching his kids grow without worry. But fate struck cruelly. The second flock contracted limberneck disease, a deadly form of botulism that killed every bird almost overnight. No insurance covered it fully. Deaths exploded, savings vanished, and by early 1952, Shelby faced total bankruptcy at age 29. Empty coops mocked him daily, creditors called relentlessly, and the shame burned deep. A proud Texan reduced to nothing, family depending on him while he scraped for odd jobs. Most would have crumbled under that weight. But in rock-bottom despair, something shifted. A high school friend, Ed Wilkins, invited Shelby to try racing. In January 1952, Shelby entered his first event, a quarter-mile drag meet at Grand Prairie Naval Air Station, driving Wilkins' flathead Ford the 5th 8-powered hot rod. He won. The thrill hit like lightning, speed, control, victory when everything else failed. That taste wasn't enough. In May 1952, at Norman, Oklahoma, Shelby borrowed Wilkins' 1949 mg TC for an SCCA road race. Against other MGs and even faster Jaguar XK120S, he dominated, winning his class and the overall event that day. Word spread fast. The tall Texan in borrowed gear was a natural. By year's end, driving Cat Allards for owners like Charles Brown and Roy Cherry Holmes, Shelby racked up more wins, including November at Caddo Mills, Texas. But here's the hidden shadow no one saw coming. Shelby's childhood heart valve leakage had quietly returned. Angina pains started creeping in during races, sharp chest tightness that could stop a man cold. He kept it secret, popping nitroglycerin pills under his tongue to relieve attacks mid-lap. Viewer, grasp the terror, roaring down tracks at 100+ mph, knowing one bad episode could end it all, yet pushing harder because racing was the only thing pulling him from ruin. This desperate spark turned bankruptcy into breakthrough, but health hurdles threatened to snuff it out. The rise that made him a star, and nearly killed him, is next. Hold tight. You're about to see how one man's unbreakable will turn total defeat into the foundation of a legend that terrified Ferrari. Racing rise and the shadow of hidden pain. This desperate spark turned bankruptcy into breakthrough, but health hurdles threatened to snuff it out. The rise that made him a star, and nearly killed him, is next. Hold tight. You're about to see how one man's unbreakable will turn total defeat into the foundation of a legend that terrified Ferrari. From that first win in January 1952 driving a friend's hot rod, Carroll Shelby's racing career exploded like nothing anyone expected. By May 1952, he entered an SCCA road race in Norman, Oklahoma, borrowing an MGTC, and dominated, winning his class and the overall event against faster Jaguars. Word spread quickly through the growing American sports car scene. This tall Texan in striped farmer's overalls, his trademark look, had raw talent. Owners lined up to give him seats. Driving powerful Cat Allards for Roy Cherry Holmes and Charles Brown, Shelby piled up victories across Texas and beyond, including Caddo Mills in November 1952. The 1950s became Shelby's playground. He raced everything, Ferraris for John Edgar, Maseratis, Jaguars, even tried Formula One briefly in 1958 to 1959 with outdated cars. Sports Illustrated named him Driver of the Year in 1956 and 1957. SCCA national championships rolled in, with dozens of wins, 19 alone in 1957. He conquered Sebring, Riverside, Nassau Speed Weeks. But the pinnacle arrived in June 1959. Co-driving an Aston Martin DBR 1 of 300 with Roy Salvadori, Shelby won the 24 Hours of Le Mans outright, the second American ever to do so, and Aston Martin's only overall victory to date. They outlasted Ferraris through reliability, averaging over 112 miles per hour for 24 hours, covering 2,701 miles. Viewer, feel the triumph, from bankrupt farmer to Le Mans hero in 7 years, wearing those same overalls on the podium while David Brown celebrated Aston's world title. Shelby became America's racing face, smooth, fearless, always extracting more from the car than seemed possible. But a deadly shadow lurked the whole time. Shelby's childhood heart valve issue had returned as angina pectoris, sharp chest pains from reduced blood flow, hereditary like his father's early death. Attacks hit during races starting early 1960, but he hit them fiercely. He raced with nitroglycerin pills under his tongue to dilate arteries and ease pain mid-lap, terrifying at 150 miles per hour. Doctors warned him repeatedly, one severe episode could be fatal. Yet Shelby pushed on, winning the 1960 USAC Road Racing Championship in Scarab and Birdcage Maserati, his last full season. His final race came December 3 to 4, 1960, at the Los Angeles Times Grand Prix in Riverside, 5th place in a Birdcage Maserati, nitroglycerin ready. At 37, peak of fame, Shelby retired from driving. The pain had become unbearable. He couldn't risk leaving his family fatherless. Viewer grasped the heartbreak, forced off the track just after Le Mans' glory, dreams cut short by a body betraying him. Driving was his escape from failure, now gone. What does a man do when the one thing saving him is taken away? But Shelby refused to fade. In that forced retirement, genius awakened. He'd build cars instead of just driving them. The birth of the Cobra that terrified Ferrari starts next, and the hurdles he overcame will leave you stunned. Don't stop now, the real revenge is coming. Shelby refused to fade after his forced retirement from driving in 1960. In that moment of heartbreak, chest pains forcing him off the track at 37, right at the peak of his Le Mans glory, he made a bold pivot that would define his legacy. The man who once hid nitroglycerin pills under his tongue mid-race now channeled that same fearless energy into building cars himself. But the road to creating Ferrari's nightmare was full of brutal hurdles that nearly stopped him before he started. Hold on. You're about to see how one rejected idea became the monster that terrified Maranello. In late 1961, Shelby founded Shelby American in Venice, California, with backing from investors like the Goodyear Tire Company and a small group of Texans. The goal was simple: build American-powered sports cars that could dominate internationally. He started with a Goodyear tire testing program, but his real vision was bigger. Shelby had heard about the British AC Cars Company, a small manufacturer whose elegant AC Ace Roadster was fast but underpowered with its outdated Bristol six-cylinder engine. Bristol stopped production, leaving AC desperate for a new power plant. Shelby saw opportunity. He approached AC with a radical proposal: ship the lightweight Ace chassis to America, and he'd install a powerful Ford the Fifth 8. AC agreed eagerly in early 1962. Ford, fresh off its total performance push under Lee Iacocca, supplied the new 260 cubic inch Hype V8, 221 horsepower initially. The first prototype arrived in Los Angeles in February 1962. Shelby's team, mechanics like Lou Spencer and engineers like Phil Remington, worked feverishly to mate the small block Ford to the AC's 4-speed transmission and tubular chassis. The results stunned everyone. The first Cobra, CSX 2000, hit the track in spring 1962, accelerating 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.2 seconds and topping 150 miles per hour, numbers that embarrassed most European sports cars. Shelby drove it himself for testing, despite health risks, and debuted it at the New York Auto Show in April 1962. Road and Track called it the fastest production car we've ever tested. Production began immediately, priced at $5,995. Early Cobras used the 260 V8, but by mid-1963, Ford's new 289 V8, 271 horsepower, became standard, pushing performance even higher. Success came fast. Cobras dominated SCCA racing from 1963 onward, with drivers like Dave McDonald and Ken Miles winning national championships. Shelby American moved to a larger facility near LAX airport. But hurdles hit hard: quality control issues with British bodies, supply delays, and Ford's initial hesitation on deeper involvement. Shelby funded much early work from his own pocket and tire testing contracts. Viewer, feel the adrenaline: a retired racer with a failing heart, betting everything on an unproven hybrid car, watching it roar to life and humiliate purebred Europeans. Enzo Ferrari himself dismissed American kit cars, a snub Shelby never forgot. This Cobra wasn't just a car, it was a declaration of war. But turning it into Ferrari's nightmare required a partnership that nearly fell apart multiple times. The Ford alliance that birthed the GT40 program is next, and the failures that almost destroyed everything will shock you. Don't stop now, the revenge is building. Ford partnership and the GT40 birth amid chaos. Shelby channeled his racing genius into building cars, and the Cobra's early success caught the eye of a giant. But turning it into Ferrari's nightmare required a partnership that nearly collapsed multiple times. The Ford alliance that birthed the GT40 program is next, and the failures that almost destroyed everything will shock you. Don't stop now, the revenge is building. By 1963, the AC Cobra was dominating American SCCA racing. Dave McDonald, Ken Miles, and Bob Hulbert racking up wins against Corvettes and even Ferraris in regional events. Shelby American had grown from a small Venice shop to a bustling operation near Los Angeles International Airport. But Shelby dreamed bigger, beating Ferrari at Le Mans, the ultimate endurance prize Enzo dominated since the 1950s. The Cobra competed well in shorter races, but lacked the closed cockpit aerodynamics and reliability for 24 hours. Enter Ford Motor Company. In 1962 to 1963, Henry Ford II, furious after a failed attempt to buy Ferrari, Enzo walked away at the last minute, insulting Ford in the process, launched Total Performance, a massive racing push to prove American cars could win internationally. Lee Iacocca and Don Frye targeted Le Mans as the ultimate revenge. They approached Shelby in late 1963, partner to develop a Ferrari beater using Ford funding and engines. Shelby jumped at it. The result was the Ford GT project, later GT40 for its 40-inch height. Eric Broadley's Lola GT with Ford the Fifth 8 served as inspiration. Shelby American took over development in 1964. Ford shipped MKI chassis to California. Shelby's team, Phil Remington, Ken Miles, Carroll himself, installed Ford's 289 V8 initially, then the big 427 NASCAR engine for power. The goal: dominate Le Mans and crush Ferrari's streak. Early days were pure chaos. The first GT40S debuted at the 1964 Nürburgring 1,000 kilometers. 3 cars entered, all retired with mechanical failures, suspension, gearbox. At Le Mans 1964, all 3 Shelby-run GT40S crashed or broke, worst showing possible. Ford executives panicked, blaming Shelby's team. Internal fights erupted. Ford wanted control, Shelby fought for independence. Budgets ballooned to millions. Ken Miles and drivers like Bob Bondurant tested relentlessly, but reliability issues persisted, overheating, transaxle failures. 1965 was worse. At Daytona, GT40S showed speed but retired. Le Mans 1965, all 6 Ford entries, Shelby and Holman Moody, failed mechanically while Ferraris swept the podium. Ford nearly pulled the plug, Henry Ford II furious, executives calling it a disaster. Shelby faced blame, his reputation on the line. Health flared too, angina attacks worsened from stress. Viewer, feel the desperation, millions spent, public humiliation, and Shelby wondering if his post-driving career would end in failure like the chicken farm. But Shelby refused to quit. He demanded changes, better transaxles, carcraft, aero tweaks, bigger 427 engines. Ford agreed to 1 more year. The 1966 overhaul, Mk2 with 7-liter power, was coming. This brink-of-collapse partnership finally delivered revenge beyond dreams. The 1966 Sierra Leonean Leon's Man's Triumph that shattered Ferrari is next, and the emotional high and hidden cost will leave you speechless. Hold on, the nightmare begins now. The Le Mans triumphs and crushing Ferrari. The brink-of-collapse partnership finally delivered revenge beyond dreams. The 1966 Sierra Leonean Leon's Man's Triumph that shattered Ferrari is next, and the emotional high and hidden cost will leave you speechless. Hold on, the nightmare begins now. After the humiliating failures of 1964 and 1965, where every Ford GT40 retired while Ferraris dominated, Shelby and his team faced make-or-break pressure for 1966. Ford poured even more resources in. The new GT40 Mk2 with massive 427 cubic inch NASCAR V8s producing over 485 horsepower. Shelby American built 7 cars, Holman Moody 3 more. Ken Miles, Bruce McLaren, Denny Hume, Ronnie Bucknum, and others tested relentlessly at Riverside and Daytona. June 18 to 19, 1966, Le Mans. 8 Mk2 centered. From the start, they overwhelmed Ferraris with raw speed. Shelby's strategy, controlled pace for reliability, paid off. In a historic finish orchestrated for publicity, 3 Fords crossed together. McLaren/Amon first, Miles/Hume second, Miles slowed deliberately, Bucknum/Hutcherson third. Ford swept the podium, Ferrari's worst nightmare realized. Enzo Ferrari stormed out early, refusing to watch. Shelby, on site despite health woes, wept openly. The domination continued. 1967 Mk4, American-built chassis, 427 engine, won with Dan Gurney/Ada J. Foyt, first All-American car/victory. Ferraris again shut out. 1968 and 1969, JW Automotive, partnered with Shelby Tech, GT40S won again with 302 and 494 engines. 4 straight Le Mans wins, 1966-69. Ferrari's streak broken forever. Viewer, feel the sweet revenge. Shelby, the ex-chicken farmer with a failing heart, masterminded the defeat of the man who snubbed American mongrels. Cobra sales soared. Shelby Mustangs, GT350/GT500 from 1965, became icons. Business boomed. But victory hid pain. Shelby's angina worsened from stress. He closed Shelby American Racing in 1969, focusing on Mustangs and health. Ford ended the program. The high was euphoric, but cracks appeared. Later battles, health crises, business flops, nearly ended him again. The heartbreaking lows after glory are next, and they're more brutal than you expect. Stay with me, this legend's darkest fights are coming. Health battles, business lows, and the fight to survive. Victory was euphoric, but cracks appeared fast. Shelby's angina worsened dramatically from the relentless stress of Le Mans programs. By 1969, at just 46, he closed Shelby American's racing operations, selling the Cobra name and tooling to focus on survival. Ford ended GT40 support after 4 wins. Viewer, feel the bitter twist. The man who crushed Ferrari now sidelined by his own body, watching his empire shrink while health betrayed him again. The 1970s brought quieter years. Shelby moved to Talingua, Texas, ran a safari company in Africa, and licensed his name for Dodge Omni Shelby GLHS and Charger models, profitable but far from racing glory. Heart pain grew unbearable. Doctors said he needed a transplant or face death soon. In June 1990, at 67, Shelby received a new heart from a 34-year-old donor who died in a Las Vegas accident. He became the oldest heart transplant recipient at the time in California, recovering remarkably fast. But lows hit again. In 1996, lungs failed from decades of strain. He received a rare heart-lung transplant. Business ventures faltered. The Shelby Series 1 supercar, announced 1997, Oldsmobile Aurora V8, carbon fiber body, aimed for 500 units but sold only 249 due to costs and delays. Financial loss despite innovation. Fake Cobras flooded the market, leading to lawsuits against replicas. Shelby fought tirelessly in court to protect his legacy. Viewer, grasp the resilience, twice given new organs, battling pain most couldn't endure, yet refusing to quit. These dark years tested him like nothing else. Health scares, money struggles, legal wars. But Shelby rose once more. The final comebacks that revived his empire and shocked the world are next. Hold on. The legend's last triumphs will inspire you like nothing else. Final comebacks and building an empire. Shelby rose once more after the dark years of transplants and business setbacks. The final comebacks that revived his empire and shocked the world are next. Hold on. The legend's last triumphs will inspire you like nothing else. By the late 1990s, after 2 transplants, heart in 1990, heart-lung in 1996, Shelby was back on his feet, determined not to fade. The Series 1 supercar flopped financially, but it proved he could still innovate. Aluminum chassis, carbon fiber body, Oldsmobile Aurora V8 tuned to 450 horsepower. Lawsuits against fake Cobras won key victories, protecting his name. The real revival came in 2003 when Shelby partnered with Ford again. At age 80, he helped launch the Ford Shelby GT500 Mustang Revival, supercharged 5.4L V8, 500 horsepower. It sold out instantly, reigniting the Shelby brand. From 2005, Shelby American in Las Vegas produced continuation Cobras, CSX 4000/CSX 8000 series with authentic specs, and tuned modern Mustangs, GT350, GT500 from 2015 to 2020. The 2020 GT500 hit 760 horsepower, fastest production Mustang ever. Shelby licensed his name wisely, wheels, parts, apparel, even chili, from his Terlingua cook-off fame. Charity became central. He founded the Carroll Shelby Children's Foundation in 1991, raising millions for pediatric heart transplants. Honors poured in: Automotive Hall of Fame 1992, International Motorsports Hall of Fame 1991. Viewer, feel the inspiration. Twice given new life through transplants, battling pain and doubters, yet building an empire that outlived him. From chicken farm ruin to billionaire legacy, pure grit. But the end came quietly. Shelby's final days and enduring impact are next, and the last surprise he left the world will move you deeply. Stay with me, one more emotional twist awaits. Shelby rose once more, building an empire in his final years, but even legends must face the end. His last days and the impact that outlives him are next, and the quiet surprise he left behind will move you deeply. Stay with me, this final chapter ties everything together. On May 10, 2012, Carroll Shelby passed away peacefully in a Dallas hospital at age 89 from complications related to his long heart issues. Surrounded by family, including daughter Sharon and sons Michael and Patrick, he left behind 6 grandchildren and a world forever changed. News hit hard, tributes from Ford executives, racing stars like Mario Andretti, even President Obama acknowledging his American icon status. Funeral services drew thousands. He was buried in his trademark overalls. Shelby's legacy is monumental. He didn't just beat Ferrari 4 straight times at Le Mans, 1966 to 1969. He humiliated Enzo's empire when it mattered most, proving American ingenuity could dominate Europe. The Cobra became an eternal icon. Over 1,000 originals built, continuation series still produced. Shelby Mustangs, GT350, GT500, sold hundreds of thousands, influencing generations. His licensing empire, parts, apparel, even Denby China patterns, made him wealthy late in life. But deeper, Shelby founded the Carroll Shelby Children's Foundation, raising millions for pediatric heart disease research and transplants, directly from his own battles. Honors piled up, SE Medal of Honor, multiple Hall of Fames. Posthumously, Ford named streets after him, released special editions. Viewer, reflect on the full arc, from childhood frailty and bankrupt despair to war hero, racing champion, health survivor twice over transplants, business builder, and Ferrari slayer. Shelby embodied unbreakable Texas spirit, turning every failure into fuel. His greatest nightmare for Ferrari? Outliving Enzo, who died 1988, and watching his creations still dominate tracks and hearts today. Shelby's story proves one truth: real legends aren't born perfect, they're forged in fire. What part of Shelby's journey hit you hardest? Comment below, which automotive icon should we expose next? Subscribe for more untold real stories. Thank you for joining this ride. Carroll Shelby's nightmare lives on.